Welcome to SVG-TV News for Friday, December 11th, 2020. I am Rochelle Batiste with the details. The Ministry of Health is to make changes to the COVID-19 protocols, which will apply to all travelers to SVG from the middle of this month. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Simone Kisa-Beach told SVG-TV News that with the likelihood of an increase of travelers to SVG, as well as in the number of COVID-19 cases, there will be change to the entry protocols from high-risk countries. Persons traveling to SVG will be required to have a PCR test done 72 hours before arrival, and it must be negative.
Those cases we have, as of Tuesday the 15th, the protocol for entry is going to change so that all persons coming from high-risk areas will have to come with a 72-hour test instead of a 5-day test. So that's the main change. We're increasing the need for shortening the duration of the test you can come with in order to try to further tighten the requirements to come and decrease the likelihood of persons coming who will be positive. So as of December 15th, persons coming from high-risk areas will have to come with a 72-hour or 3-day-old test, and persons just similar as those persons coming from medium and low-risk countries. So that's the main change.
St. Vincent and the Grenadines on Thursday recorded 3 new COVID-19 cases. 2 of these are returning nationals who arrived from the USA on Saturday, December 5th, 2020, with negative RT-PCR test results. Tested negative on entry screening, then positive on the 5 testing for SARS-CoV-2. The 3rd case is an American national who also arrived on Saturday, December 5th from the USA with a negative RT-PCR test result, tested negative on entry screening and then positive on day 5 testing. The Ministry of Health said the adult travelers were in mandatory quarantine and will be isolated until cleared by 2 negative tests. Contact tracing and testing have commenced. This country has now recorded a total of 94 COVID-19 cases, 81 of which have recovered. There are now 13 active COVID-19 cases who have all derived from countries categorized as high risk. The ministry has noted that the increased rate of the occurrence of positive cases in travelers to SVG over the last 4 weeks is associated with the major increase in cases in the USA, Canada, and to a lesser extent the UK. It is reminding persons to follow all the established protocols in order to reduce the risk of the introduction and subsequent spread of new COVID-19 cases in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The world's largest floating book fair, the MV Logos Hope, is due to return to Port Kingston today, and the ship's crew has been placed under quarantine in keeping with local COVID-19 health protocols. According to the ship's schedule, it is expected to dock at Port Kingston up to February 1st, 2021. The ship is carrying some 5,000 books for sale, all below market prices. The books covered a range of subjects including science, sports, hobbies, cooking, medicine, language, as well as children titles, academic texts, dictionaries, Bibles, and more. The MV Logos Hope last visited Port Kingston in November 2019. This ship is operated by the GB Ships EV, an international charitable organization registered in Germany. The Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Simone Kisa-Beach, said that all protocols are being followed, such as testing and quarantine. The CMO said that testing of the more than 200 persons on board has commenced.
We'll go through the typical process of having all of them having PCR testing done. Anyone who is found to be positive will be removed from the ship and put in isolation along with their close contacts. They will have a second and a 3rd test on day 5 and then again on day 8 to 9. No Vincentans, no locals will be on the ship for the entire duration of their time here. When the entire ship is cleared, that's when they will be allowed to disembark.
The CMO added that once the ship is given the all clear, the sale of books will be done on shore, again with all protocols in place.
And typical exhibition and book sales and so on, those will be done on shore in a wide open area. So there'll be no intention for locals going on board the ship. It's most likely to happen over by 10 days into it. Depends on what happens with the testing. Typical period of arrival, testing, quarantining.
Students and staff at 9 schools across St. Vincent and the Grenadines can look forward to new and improved facilities under a major schools improvement project. The project will be supported with $13.7 million in funding from the Caribbean Development Bank, the CDB. On Thursday, December 10th, the bank's board of directors approved support of the project, which will see 2 schools, the Kingston Anglican Primary and the Sandy Bay Secondary, completely restructured and 7 others significantly upgraded or rehabilitated. The schools slated for rehabilitation are the Barley Anglican Primary, the Barley Government Primary, Beckway Community High, the Girls High School, the Sinclair Dacon Secondary, the St. Vincent Grammar School, and the Thomas Saunders Secondary. More than 6,000 students are enrolled at the 9 institutions. A news release from the CDB said the schools will also be outfitted with new and upgraded furniture, equipment, and ICT learning resources under the project, and there will be capacity building component to train teachers and staff to effectively integrate technology in teaching. In addition, the project provides for temporary facilities for the relocation of school operations during the planned infrastructure works. Division Chief of the Social Sector Division at the CDB, Deirdre Clarendon, said upgrading the physical spaces for learning is key to creating an overall improved educational experience. He explained that the upgrades will also include customization to support vulnerable learners, such as persons with disabilities, and to meet the requirements of increasingly diversify modern school curriculum. The funding from the CDB comprises a combined loan of €9.03 million and $3 million to the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines from the bank's ordinary capital resources and special funds resources, the CFR, and a grant of $15,000 from the CFR. The total cost of the project is $17.25 million, with the remaining funding to come from the government. And project manager of the Caribbean Development Bank's Technical Vocational Education Training Development Project, Endel Johnson, said that the project has accomplished its aim in training over 1,000 youths in St. Vincent and the Grenadines with a new skill. He was speaking at the most recent graduation ceremony of the Kingston Technical Institute on Wednesday. Johnson said the project, which started 7 years ago, aimed to develop the physical structure of existing plants in SVG and to train youth at Caribbean Vocational Qualification Level 1 and the development of teachers. Johnson, who is also the Senior Education Officer with responsibility for TVET, said that the youth in SVG are grateful for the training because the country lacks quality workmanship.
Suffering immensely from what is known as quality workmanship, and the type of training that you would have received at the Technical Institute will vastly improve the quality of our workmanship and service delivery in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We are grateful for you. You have come a mighty long way.
Johnson highlighted some of the benefits that the participants receive during their time at the Institute. Counterfeit, petty crimes, trafficking in persons, adhering to traffic laws and fire prevention are some of the areas which the Royal St. Vincent and the Grenadines Police Force focus on today as they stage the annual crime prevention exhibition. The exhibition, which is put on by the Crime Prevention Unit, was this year scaled back from 1 week to 1 day and had as its theme securing citizens and visitors through innovative policing. Chairman of the Crime Prevention Unit, Sion Shoy, said the police continue to do their part by ensuring that citizens are safe, and while education through exhibit on has been impactful, persons need to be reminded and constantly educated, especially during the Christmas season.
Crime is being reduction for the past year to the statistics. We see a reduction in crimes in certain areas. And we're trying to be tough on crime as always, and the Commissioner and the other ranks, it's our job to make sure that we're tough on crime as it relates to protecting visitors and citizens alike. As we know, Christmas time, a lot of persons will be in town. We advise persons when you walk in the street, make sure you protect your cash, be discreet in when you check in your money. If you're going to the ATM, stay inside, check it. To the bank, likewise. If you're carrying your wallet, we advise male, walk with it in the front pocket. The female with the purse, make sure you hold it close to you, because we have a lot of pickpockets, persons around this time, and we advise persons. It's very hard in this time as it relates to funds, so we exhort persons to protect their properties as it relates to funds.
Corporal Shoy also sent out a strong warning to persons with criminal intentions and asked those with illegal weapons to surrender them.
So we advise you to take in the exhibition, and this is our message throughout for the criminal. If you're coming in town, please leave your we call them offensive weapon at home. Don't bring any knife, cutlasses. Come town where everybody could enjoy themselves. Of course, with illegal firearms, we advise you to bring them in, because it's an illegal and unlawful act to find anyone with any unlawful guns or anything. As you know, the gun violence is really on the rise, and we have known we're tough on that, and we advise that person with that. We're going to be very harsh as it relates to the gun violence, as it relates to what we are doing.
Our news team spoke with some of the exhibitors from the various police departments who shared information on what people need to know at this time.
We are encouraging persons to always be on the alert. We cannot be naive and think that, yes, we are living in St. Vincent, but there are persons out there who might want to take something from us that doesn't belong to them. In Christmas season, we have a lot of theft that takes place, and we're asking you, put the necessary preventative measures in place to protect your home, to protect yourself, your family, and your neighbors around you.
Well, in Kingstown, our main offences is the road signs. Most persons will come to town and they would park on the road sign and they would leave their vehicle and they would go away. Some will fail to stop at the crossing. Some would even stop on the pedestrian crossing. Other offences are they will drive without due care and attention. They drive dangerous to the public, which we are clamping down on. So we're asking persons, if they see something, say something.
The fishermen, how beneficial it is for them to have handheld flares and a flare gun in case of emergency, because when they encounter the problem, especially at night, and it's very difficult for us to find them. Once you have a light, specifically the flares, it makes it easier for us to find them.
About having these VHF radios, we encourage the fishermen to have them GMDSS, Global Maritime Distress Safety Signal, ready, where the NTRC have the DSC, Digital Selective Calling. So it's a feature within the radio where each fisherman will be given an identity, just as a phone number, So in the event of any distress, they can call each other or call the Coast Guard using that VHF.
Okay, if there's a small fire, right, it's very important that you try and extinguish that fire in its earliest stage, in the ignition stage of the fire. Because once it gets out of hands, it's very difficult. Then you have to call the fire department. And that's where the extinguisher comes in. The extinguisher should only be used in the earliest stage of the fire. You try and knock down the fire as early as possible. Once it gets out of hand, you have to inform the authorities, and so they will call the fire department.
The woman who accommodated the escaped prisoners Veron Primus and Ulrich Hansen was sentenced to jail when she appeared in court today. Senior Magistrate Ricky Bonnet handed down a one-year prison sentence on 29-year-old Shandine Farrell for impeding apprehension of the two escapees. The charge was that Farrell, between December 9th and 10th at Lomans Leeward, knowing Primus and Hansen to be guilty of escaping lawful custody, she, without lawful authority and reasonable excuse, did an act to impede their apprehension or prosecution. Farrell pleaded guilty to the charge. Primus and Hansen, who are both awaiting trial for murder, were discovered missing from Her Majesty's prison in Kingston at about 6 a.m. on Wednesday, December 9, 2020. The escaped prisoners were recaptured at Farrell's home the following day at around 9:30 a.m. It was the second time that Primus had escaped prison. He has been in custody since April 2016. He had pleaded guilty to a charge that between September 30th and October 1st, 2019, at Kingston, while being held on remand at Her Majesty's prison, he did escape such lawful custody. He was sentenced to 16 months for that offense. The police force sexual offences unit said there were about 200 reported cases of sexual offences for 2020. Today, members of the unit were part of the annual Crime Prevention Awareness exhibition at the Central Police Station in Kingstown, and information about sexual crimes was among the areas of focus. Lucette Scarpio-Gailey told SVGTV News that all of the cases have been investigated and they are making headway in the courts as well.
We have had persons who were convicted at the family court level, because that was a summary offense, right? So there are summary offenses that would happen, that would take place in the family court, and there are those that would go on to the high court, right? So before, there are persons who would say the matters they are taking so long, and it is so because when you go to the family court, there has to be a PI, a preliminary inquiry. The president there, the family court president, will listen to the evidence that is before her, and once there is sufficient evidence, then she would send that matter on to the high court, because she would not.
CPO Gali said that during the investigations, it was found that many persons are still not reporting rape and other sexual offenses, including parents, and she is reminded that they could be charged.
We have parents or guardians. Sometimes they are not willing to report a sexual assault towards a child, and the Child Adoption and the Child Protection Act of 2010. It says that parents, they have a responsibility, because sometimes parents know that a child is being sexually assaulted and they hide or they do not report, right? And they have a responsibility to report. Failing to do so, they can be arrested and they can have a fine to pay, $5,000.
The police officers said that any reports made is treated with confidence, and there is need for more education about rape, which is committed against both males and females.
Persons would say men would, whether or not a female or man can be raped. But for rape, there must be penetration, right? The penis must go into the vagina, right? And penetrate the vagina for it to be good. And women, we do not have a penis to penetrate a man. So there are other offenses that can, a man, you have the buggery, in terms where men and men have sexual intercourse, right? But in terms, if you have to look at it at a woman perspective, women cannot rape.
November 6th, 2020 was 2 years since the Sexual Offences Unit was established.